What's up, party people? Welcome back to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin. Super excited, as always, to be here with you guys today. And we do have a solo episode. So, with everything going on, all of the new Meraki updates, I just wanted to jump back in to share more of reflections, evolution of business that we've been experiencing over the past few months, and overall just evolution of self. So this episode most likely will be cut into different parts, and really we're just gonna ramble together and process what amazing things can come out of when we stop making ourselves really small. So I want to jump in by recapping for anybody that didn't catch the new Meraki update or hasn't been following our stories on Instagram. Recently, Meraki has expanded to a Fractional Chief Marketing Officer position that we offer to very small amounts of clients. We're talking like 1 to 2 of these contracts at a time because it is so much heavy lifting that I'm actually providing myself to these organizations that we're working with. And what's been really amazing is seeing how some beautifully built companies have been able to operate for years and years and years without a marketing team internally within their organization. So, for example, one of the companies that we've been communicating about this offer with, like prior to the signed offer that we got, actually had never had an internal marketing department within their company. And one of these companies has actually been around for 64 years. They were acquired and became under different ownership, but they've never really needed marketing because there was so many other ways to build their business up until now. So I'm sharing this because I want everyone to understand that when you're building a company, there isn't really a blueprint. I think so many of us have given away our power, right? Whether it's coaches, courses, we've talked about this so many times on the podcast, thinking that there's some sort of secret or golden key, right? Whether it's in life, business, happiness, whatever we're looking to achieve in our lives, and we think that other people have it. And that is most of the time when we are spending a lot of money working with someone that probably is aware that their blueprint may not work for everyone, but they continue to sell that product or service. Maybe it works for them, maybe it works for some of their clients, but the whole purpose of this podcast is always to go in with the end in mind, knowing that you have the internal power to build your life whatever way you'd like to, and to talk about different stories of people that have been able to do that. So I wanted to share with you all this amazingly built company that did not need an internal marketing department to create multiple 6-figure business. We're talking like multi-million-dollar business without ever having a marketing department. And what made them decide, right, to bring in a chief marketing officer in a fractional way, and why does fractional work for some businesses and may not work for other businesses? What it really comes down to is how much marketing actually needs to be done to build their company. If they were to hire somebody full-time, like not even specifically in this company, but in this example of, mid-market companies, we may say, like small to mid-market companies is how corporate speak would define this type of organization. This company in particular, and all companies at that level, may not need a full-time marketing manager, right? They're 5 days a week. Like, it actually could end up overwhelming the company and not allow it to sustainably grow over time. So prior to hiring for marketing, they were acquiring different businesses and expanding their business locally in that sense, because that's what was working for them. And that's what felt the best, right, to build their company. Now they're getting to the point where they want to sustain business, which is where marketing comes in. Marketing isn't just about getting new business, it's also about recreating that revenue, right? That's reoccurring and keeping top of mind with current clients through the online space. Could be print marketing. There's so many different ways of marketing, depending on the industry that your company is in as well. So knowing that you don't have to be marketing to grow your company is like number one that I want people to take away from this episode, because I'm in marketing, right? So I'm always talking about why marketing is so important and why I believe in it. I believe in it because of these companies that I've seen now, right, get to this point where they know that they need this type of support, and they are excited to bring someone in like the Meraki team and myself to be able to support and sustain them at that level and help their business grow over time. As they grow, the marketing efforts will grow, right? We can expand with them, and that's what allows them to create more dynamics, efficiency, expansion of the business over time, but also sustain. So a lot of people always think about marketing as new leads. It's not really what the whole purpose of marketing is. Marketing is really about awareness. And that's one thing that we learn in communication school that's really the key to marketing. It's not so much the efficiency of funnel building, right, and actually getting leads through the pipeline. That would be a more in-depth type of marketing service, which leads us to the Chief Marketing Officer role. So just know that if you currently are in business and you feel like you have no leads coming in, and maybe marketing isn't something that you love to do, luckily in today's society, there's so many different ways to build your company that weren't available years prior to us. I mean, like, we're going back decades prior, right, to just humanity. So you can actually acquire businesses, you can buy books of business, you can utilize different platforms to market for you, so you don't actually have to be actively marketing through your own channels. There are ways to expand your business without push marketing, right? Like buying ads. Organic is always the way that Meraki goes, especially to start with a company. And then we will grow to paid marketing. But we're also very specific about paid marketing, because I'd love to talk about that more later in this episode around like the consumer and how much the buying process has changed over the past few years. So number one takeaway is if you aren't currently marketing and you want more leads, I really would love to encourage you all to explore different routes of areas that you can expand your company in a more intuitive way. Recently, I was working with a one-on-one client, and she is using a platform that markets, actually a few of my one-on-one mentorship clients, they utilize platforms to market their services, and it helps them get leads in very quickly for their business, and has actually allowed them to expand their business in a short matter of time without, again, having to actively create and build their own pipeline from scratch. So it is very nice to have leads flowing in from a platform that you trust, right? Somewhere that you maybe pay to list your services. I mean, there's so many different types of platforms out there to list a few. It would depend on your industry. So if you're having a trouble deciding if a platform like this is worth it for you, of course, you can always DM me and I'm happy to have a conversation. Or what I would really recommend is going to those platforms and requesting hard numbers. What is the actual ROI that they've seen other organizations get when listing their services through their platform? What can you expect in the first few months of them building your business and lead system for you? And what capacity, right, do they have currently on the platform? Because if it's oversaturated with other organizations, practitioners that you're looking to support, there may be another platform that would be better suited for you, right? So do your research before you start to onboard with some of these platforms. Make sure that you feel connected and aligned. But I do just want to start off this episode by sharing this small to mid-market company built their entire book of business off acquisitions and having a really beautiful and wonderful referral system locally, which also comes down to credibility, right? Which honestly just takes time to build in a business. That's not something that can be built overnight or even just in a few months of starting a company. I was talking with a colleague of mine the other day. We were just catching up for some coffee, and we were discussing like how many people used to say, we're going back decades now, like when my grandfather first started his real estate company, they used to say it takes 3 years to build income, like consistent income in a business. And we were joking today about this, and we were like, nowadays it feels like it takes 7 years, to really, because there was such this surge of entrepreneurship in 2020 that the people that have now, right, faded out of having businesses or have decided to continue on, like that longevity of having a company is actually what's going to help you build the credibility over time. But it does feel like sometimes it takes 7 years to get to that full comfortability moment as an entrepreneur. If you've been in the game for a long time, I'm sure you're chuckling. It's kind of more of a joke for anybody that still is early on in business. Please don't take that to heart. There's always opportunities and ways to grow your company to sustain income before then, but it's just kind of a funny way of looking at what they used to say versus what it's like now today. Because when you throw something like the internet into the mix, right, and this loss of trust that can just naturally happen, it's important to just reallocate the time frames, right, and change up some of the old milestones that might not be realistic in today's world. So I hope you guys got a chuckle out of that. Next thing I want to get into for today's topic, or if this is the part 2 to the episode, is talking about push marketing and the way that the consumer has changed. This is such a really interesting topic right now. We're seeing a lot of companies struggle with where to put their ad funds. This started to happen a few years ago, actually, maybe like a year and a half ago, pretty consistently. I had clients saying to me that their Facebook ads stopped working, or, something fell short. To be honest with you guys, that's probably more of a technical issue on the back end of Facebook. When they do updates like they've been doing on MetaSuite for honestly like the past 5 years pretty consistently, there's going to be dips in engagement in an ad, or simply that ad will become disconnected from their system because the data can be lost when they transfer certain softwares over. Just like some plugins, if that makes sense from a technical side, will not be as efficient as they once were on the platform overall because of the data that may be being transferred at that time. So like, what do I mean? Think about data. Like my dad actually used to work for AT&T and Lucent Technology. When I was really little, he would walk in and show me like they have these very large panels of data. And basically these data panels host all of the IP addresses, right, in your area. For us, it was actually like most of the Northeast at this time. There was not as much data, right, back then. My dad died 15 years ago. So we're going back almost 20 years ago when he was showing me some of these data towers, basically. And they had floors and floors of data towers. So what can happen is, like, if you think about it physically, right, which is what they used to have to do, is they would have to pull a data disk out of one tower and plug it into another tower. Let's say a telephone line fell down in Northeast New Jersey. That data tower, right, is actually hosted within like the local institution of this building that he worked in, and he would have to move and replug in those data disks to a different tower. So if you think about it manually happening, it may help our brains, right, compute like what is actually happening online when they're doing this. Because there's things like the cloud now, it's not as physical. But if you think about unplugging that data, right, like even just from the unplugged time, there's data being lost, right? Because it's no longer plugged in from the time that you're pulling that disk out and replugging it back in to a different tower. It's going to lose that data at that time. So what can happen is it causes glitches in the back end of the technology. So because I was like exposed to that at such a young age, my dad would explain this to me. He was very, had a very like technological brain. So I was gifted to be like educated by him. They say he was a part of like really cutting edge time, right? Cell phones were just rolling out, and they were a part of some of the biggest conversations. AT&T, if you guys know, Lucent Technologies used to be like one of the only technology companies in the United States. So they then got bought out, and now there's been a whole reallocation of telecom and things like that have turned over the years. But really, they ran the lines for technology overall. So they know a lot about like data and all of that. When you understand that these glitches can happen, it sometimes makes it a little bit more understandable that when you are running an ad and something stops working, that it may just need to be refreshed. It may just need to be restarted in a new ad build out, or that ad simply no longer resonates with your consumers or whoever you're looking to sell, right? Maybe you're selling B2B. It just may not resonate anymore. And a lot of people can be shocked like how quickly an ad can flip on them. But most of the time you can start to see a trend. So the way I look at this, as a lot of you know, is from my own personal consumer outlooks and like the thoughts that I have. And one day I remember, we've been talking about this for so many years on this episode, but remember when people like started to get targeted earlier on for ads? We're talking like back when I was in college, like when I was a junior in college, and they just started like utilizing the access to our microphones on our phone and taking some of that information and then redirecting the ad, or right, cross-trading it from different platforms that they would buy data sheets off of, and then they would reallocate the ad to your account. And you would be like talking about shoes, and all of a sudden the specific exact shoes that you wanted show up on your Facebook feed, right, as an ad. And so many of us were like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. Like what are they doing, right? Start turning off our microphone access through Facebook and just getting like pretty frustrated. And then there came a period of time where we all just stopped really caring, right? We kind of accepted like, okay, they're trading the data, they're listening, right? They're all listening, and we've accepted it. Now the consumer has accepted this for, let's say, maybe 10 years or so. And I find myself almost like revolting, right, against these like targeted ads. Now I find myself, if I'm even advertised anything, I don't necessarily want to buy it. I actually want to go and find an off-brand or a different type of brand and get the same exact product, but not from the people that are targeting me for ads. I don't know if any of you are feeling this way, but I find that because I'm in marketing and because I study trends, if I'm feeling this way and I start to talk to other people about it and they're feeling this way, collectively, eventually, most people will start to feel this way. So what we've seen over pushed ads over the past few months, and like I said, almost a year and a half, is that they are not producing. You will hear from many large organizations that they can no longer utilize push ads because they aren't working. It's not that people don't want the product or service, again, that you're providing, but they simply don't want to be sold something. They'd rather go searching for it. This is where AI comes in, okay?